And we are back with another episode of the Kyle Anslone Show. I am solo again today, but that's because I had something that I really want to talk about, hammer out in detail. I think there's a really significant political shift going on in the United States of America, and everybody is just coming at this from the wrong direction. There's so many bad actors in all this. So I want to take some time and break it down. And of course, foreign policy, in particular, the U.S. special relationship with Israel, is at the center of all this. So more or less the topic I want to tackle today is that the Zionists are turning the Democrats into communists, and they're pushing the Republicans to the far right. And I'll break down what I mean by that all in today's show. I got a bunch of clips for you. I think a lot of really interesting stuff to talk about today. So share it out. Help me get this show out there to a few more people. I'm sure there's already a couple people listening live. And let's get right into the first clip. This is Ben Shapiro attacking Tucker.
Tucker Carlson has turned himself into a conspiracist and a crank and a pathological liar. Tucker excuses Vladimir Putin's murderous and barbarous reign. He has even become one of his most ardent defenders. Tucker Carlson has attacked President Trump as a cover-up artist for sex trafficker Jeffrey Epstein on behalf of Israel and Mossad, because, of course, Tucker's a coward. Tucker Carlson has stated that President Trump has undermined America First and MAGA by attacking Iran, giving in to neocon ghouls like Mark Levin. Tucker Carlson acts as an ideological launderer for other people's evils. He's a master of gaslighting. Tucker Carlson will have on a Hitler-friendly pseudo-historian to minimize the Holocaust and blame Winston Churchill for World War II. And he will call him America's best and most honest historian.
I thought Churchill was the chief villain of the Second World War.
Tucker Carlson will have on over and over a pro-Chinese propagandist who used global warming to promote global socialism, all in order to criticize Israel and hug China.
Israel has run American foreign policy in the Middle East for 30 years. That's how it works. This is actually the truth. If we drop our angst on big bad Russia, big bad China, which is also not going to invade the United States. They're not a threat to the United States, honestly, and Iran is not a threat.
Tucker Carlson, of course, brings on pro-Hamas voices episode after episode after episode. The instances are almost limitless. America needs a robust conservative organization based on principle and ideas, not personal loyalty to bad actors like Tucker Carlson.
It is amazing. Sometimes I watch Ben Shapiro and really confuse him with Rachel Maddow at this point. He's one shave away from me not being able to tell the difference. Even the rhetoric is absolutely the same. Oh, Tucker Carlson's a bad guy. Trump's a bad guy. Cozying up to Russia. Oh, no, anti-Semitism. But this is, really the only thing they have to attack Tucker with. And this isn't even an accurate attack of Tucker. What they're really trying to do, as we'll get into this show, that rather than being able to take on the arguments to go out and debate Tucker Carlson and Candace Owens, they're hiding and they're trying to make Nick Fuentes the representation of the entire right wing of the United States that's not ideologically committed to being in bed with Israel and supporting everything that Israel does. That's the point of all of this. And what it's going to do is this is going to make Nick Fuentes the spokesman for an increasing number of people on the right. And what they think is going to happen is the same thing that the Hillary Clinton campaign thought was going to happen in 2015 when they had the Pied Piper strategy and they were telling all their allies in the mainstream media to pump up. It was Trump, Santorum, and I believe Cruz, thinking that a further right-wing Republican would be easier for Hillary to defeat in the primary. And it absolutely blew up in her face because Hillary Clinton was an awful person. And the same thing is going to happen here. Ben Shapiro cannot take on Nick Fuentes. Mark Levin cannot take on Nick Fuentes. And this isn't me endorsing Nick Fuentes' views. This is just me explaining that when the American people see what has happened in Gaza, and there's one group of people defending it and one group of people condemning it, people are going to reflexively just side with the people condemning it because it is so unambiguous. What has happened in Gaza has happened with American tax dollars, with American bombs dropped from American warplanes, with America's greatest ally, and was completely funded by the United States. And because everybody knows this, they're going to side with Fuentes because they make Israel the central part of their issue. They're essentially, creating their own enemy, their own worst nightmare here. When if they didn't attack Tucker all the time and they allowed there to be a debate among the right wing of America between Tucker Carlson and Nick Fuentes, I think we're going to see exactly what we saw when Tucker sat down with Fuentes, where Tucker said several times that he views, racist ideology, collectivist thinking when it comes to race or ethnicity as evil, as absolutely unchristian, 100% against his values. And Nick didn't fight back, right? He just kind of agreed with Tucker and tried to make some points, but really, didn't in any way win even a modicum of an argument on that issue. Right? That's actually an effective way to combat anti-Semitism and suppress the kind of thought that, Ben Shapiro, Graham, and others say that they want to stomp out the anti-Semitic statements. But again, they're doing the exact opposite here by conflating Fuentes with Carlson. This is really, disturbing. And then I just want to show kind of the depth of thought from some of the Republicans on this issue. This is Senator Lindsey Graham speaking at, I think it's the Republican Jewish Coalition over the weekend.
We understand that Israel is a friend of America to the bitter end. We understand that God blesses those who bless Israel. And where I come from, I figured that crap out when I was 6 years old. God bless you. Thank you very much.
I mean, what a joke. And of course, the reason again that they're trying to, mix up Carlson and Fuentes is because when Tucker brought this argument, or not Tucker, excuse me, when Ted Cruz brought this argument on Tucker's show, when he said this to Tucker absolutely annihilated him on this issue. He made Ted Cruz look like a fool and probably shifted a lot of Americans' thinking, or solidified a lot of Americans' thinking on this issue that, no, actually, God does not command me and you today to endorse the modern state of Israel. That's not Christian. That's not what's in the Bible. That's a misinterpretation of the Bible. I think Dan McAdams on the show a little bit ago called people who follow that a cult. He's saying that this is really outside of what Christianity is. And it's a really important point. It's an argument that they absolutely can't make. And that's why they want to argue with the fiction that they've created of Fuentes. But by doing that, they are only empowering him. Now, next up, one more here from the Republican Jewish Coalition. This is Rich Scott.
But there is still severe anti-Semitism. And there are socialist candidates across our country on the cusp of potentially leading some of our nation's biggest cities. Just look at New York City, where voters are about to elect a radical socialist who is anti-Semitic, anti-police, and anti-capitalism in New York City. Mandamia said, quote, "We have to make it clear that when the boots of the NYPD is on your neck, it's been laced by the IDF." Think about that statement. He's saying that Israel and our law enforcement are fueling violence in our great country. It's not just anti-Semitic, anti-police. Just like socialism, it's evil and it's idiotic.
So I just want to start here showing this clip to say that this also extends to pushing people on the left more towards communism. Again, they're making the issue around Mandani, the guy who was just elected as mayor of New York City, to be that of this guy is anti-Semitic. Anybody who votes for him is anti-Semitic. He doesn't think there should be a Jewish state of Israel, and therefore he's bad and unacceptable in American politics. And again, people are going to look at what Mandani is saying on the issue. They're going to look at what Cuomo, Rich Scott, and others are saying on the issue. And they're going to say, well, Mandani isn't for the genocide. And then they're going to side with him. And then they like him, and kind of in the law of U.S. Politics, personality is really important to people, and they agree with him on one issue. They're just going to think that, oh, he's saying smart things about other things. Where had they allowed that election to be about communism and all the free stuff that Mandani was proposing, and really articulated and had a candidate who wasn't kicked out of office, ran out of office over sexual harassment, they probably would have been able to really make a big, at least, contest against Mandani rather than what happened. So one of the overall points I wanted to make about this is the way that the Zionists are approaching this current moment. It's really exacerbating the problem, pushing people more to the right and the left. And I saw something happen in the libertarian movement in 2017. At the time, I wasn't a guy, writing at the Libertarian Institute. I was just, watching the shows, and I was a big follower of Part of the Problem and Dave Smith. And in 2017, right after Trump took office, there was a libertarian convention. This was in February. And during that convention, a alt-right figure, I think he was like considered the leader of the alt-right for a time, Richard Spencer, showed up. And he was confronted by Jeffrey Tucker. And for people who don't know who Jeffrey Tucker is, he's a very proper older man. He dresses very nicely in a suit with a bow tie. And Tucker went up to Jeffrey Spencer and just berated him until he forced him to leave the convention. And what happened is that people got really interested in what Richard Spencer might be saying that made this man, who, feel how you feel about Jeffrey Tucker, looks like the kind of guy that goes outside and yells at the kids for riding their skateboards on the sidewalks and things like that. Him essentially acting like a Karen caused people to really get interested in what Richard Spencer has to say, and try to figure out, does the libertarian movement fit in with the alt-right? Less than or just over a month later, Richard Spencer goes on Dave Smith. It was just like Tucker and Nick Fuentes. It was a friendly conversation. They discussed their policy differences. Dave just kind of let Spencer talk and explain what he believed. And by the end of the conversation, it was clear to libertarians that our ideology doesn't fit with theirs. And any interest of a lot of libertarians in the alt-right immediately fizzled. I was part of the online communities and chat rooms and things like that where people were actively reacting to that. And so if you allow people like Fuentes, Richard Spencer, Chris Cantwell to speak their minds, people are going to realize that they don't agree with everything they say. But whenever you have the people who everybody knows is lying to you about what's happening in Israel, that there's a genocide going on, and they're telling you what is happening is righteous and just, and then they're telling you that that man over there is a demon and you have to condemn him, he's the new Hitler, he loves Hitler, they're going to be interested in what that guy has to say because they see you actively defending a genocide. And even if that guy does like Hitler, you're actively committing a genocide, and people just absolutely can't get past that. And so they're really, really, really fueling the Mandanis and the Fuenteses and the people at the more extremes of the American political spectrum. So I want to say we're at I think a very, very, very dangerous point right now in the United States where things could really spiral out of control if people keep reacting to all these idiots in the center that have run our country into the ground, who have stolen our wealth, inflated away the value of our currency, sent so many of our countrymen to fight and die in pointless wars. And even if they do come back, they're never the same because of what the U.S. military ordered them to do. They're constantly going all over the globe, essentially fighting wars for different special interests in the United States. None of this has been in the benefit of the American people. And now everybody knows it. Everybody could see it in a very odd way. While foreign policy doesn't often play a major role in, I think, what Americans believe and how they vote, the issue of Gaza has been such a kind of a dichotomy because most people could see the images online, and they've just seen so many of them now. Starving children torn apart by bombs. And they've heard in the Israeli officials' own words, like Bezalel Smotrich, Netanyahu, Ben-Gvir, have all said that they want to drive all the Palestinians out, that's their goal of this. Netanyahu using the phrase Amalek and to go into Gaza like that. is something that really did have, I think, a major impact and woke a lot of people up to how toxic and problematic the American, center right and center left establishment policy is, and how willing they are to just lie to you day after day after day. But people saw the truth and now they're reacting to it. I think it's just important that you don't let people move too far to the right and the left. And that's why it's so important to have people like Dave Smith, Tucker Carlson, Candace Owens, sitting down with the people who are moving further out to the right, even if they don't get in a heated argument with the person that they're interviewing. They're also talking to, they're talking to Fuentes and these other figures. They're talking to their audiences. And when Tucker is saying that is distinctly unchristian to hate somebody based on their ethnicity, and Nick doesn't have a good comeback for that, he's probably lighting sparks in people's minds, just like what happened when Dave Smith interviewed Richard Spencer, what was it, like 8-9 years ago now. So I think that is really important. And it's also important why there has to be really good, principled people who, even if I don't agree with all their policies all over the political spectrum, to continue to make sure people don't engage in this, racialized and collectivist mindset and thinking and drift too far to the right or too far towards communism. That Matt Blumenthal, Aaron Mate, and so many other people on the left are able to fill this role. And of course, we have so many great people in the Libertarian and on, the broader right, people like Daryl Cooper, including former guests of this show, are doing all this very important work. So now I have one more clip to play of kind of the conversation on the American right now. And I just love this one. It's the last show of the week. So this is fantastic. Let's play this clip.
About your father's relationship with Israel. He's taken over $230 million from pro-Israel groups. During the summer against Iran, even though he advised against it, Israel still attacked Iran. Israel has not been a great ally to the U.S. all the way since 1960 when they bombed the USS Liberty. Israel is a nation where Christians are constantly under attack in both Gaza and the West Bank. We talk about America first and defending Christians, but how can we do this if we align ourselves with a nation that does not do that itself?
There's no question my father's had frustration. In fact, I think he's had frustration throughout the whole conflict with both sides. At the same time, make no mistake, you have a nation that will develop a nuclear weapon, and you have a nation that will use that nuclear weapon against the Western way of life. There's no question about it.
In response to the nukes from Iran, Israel has nuclear weapons and is not a part of the IAEA, unlike Iran. And it's just sad to see, because I've never seen the American president get treated the way he does by the Israeli government.
This is a president of peace. And sometimes you have to be slightly unconventional with how you get there. You use what you have. That is certainly what he's been able to do. Peace around the world sounds pretty good to me, and that's what this president is bringing.
So there are a lot of things that I really like about this clip. First off, he mentions the USS Liberty, this kid that's 10, maybe 15 years younger than I am, an event that happened in 1967, a very tragic event where Israel bombed an American ship in the Mediterranean. We could go into a whole story about the USS Liberty. Maybe we'll do it sometime. But the fact that this young man knows about that is fantastic. But even better, that got a round of applause that he brought up the USS Liberty. That means there is a noticeable number of people in that auditorium who are aware that Israel attacked the United States in the past and killed dozens of our sailors, destroyed one of our warships, and honestly would have killed them all had it not been for, I think, a very, very courageous signalman who was able to, get the message out and have other U.S. warships appear in the area to make sure the Israelis stopped strafing the survivors and attempting to kill them all. So that's the first part about this. The second part is that he is framing this in a way of, I'm embarrassed for President Trump because of the way that Netanyahu is treating him, right? Like, he's not coming at this from a perspective of, like, I'm not in favor of Donald Trump. He's like, it sounds like this kid likes Trump, right? Like, he wants Donald Trump to be the alpha dog. He wants Donald Trump to be in charge. And, from what this kid's question was, like, I wouldn't be surprised if he's read the news stories in Axios that say the Trump administration is frustrated with Netanyahu, that every time they're close to getting a deal done, he bombed someone. And Trump has allowed this to happen, right? Like, he's allowed a country that gets billions and billions of dollars from the United States every year, that is only able to, its military is only able to continue to fight because of the assistance it gets from the United States. Even 70% of Israelis say that Israel is a client state of the United States. And Donald Trump is letting this little client state in the Middle East of 8 million people ruin his presidency. And this kid is rightfully upset about it. And he's going to Donald Trump's son and kind of saying, why aren't you upset about this too? Like, what the hell is going on here? And that is, I think, really monumental. And this isn't the first time these questions have been asked at Turning Point USA events. And clearly not from people who are there to be agitators or anything. Like, he's not trying to go and ask a provocative question. He sincerely wants to know why Donald Trump isn't alpha dogging Netanyahu and is allowing Netanyahu to dictate his policy. Now, the last thing there is he brings up the nuclear weapons. This kid even knows that Israel is a nuclear weapon state outside of the NPT, and the IAEA has verified that Iran isn't making nuclear weapons. I think this is fantastic. These are facts that for so long Americans haven't known, and that the younger generation seems to have a really good handle on it. It's important. For years, polling in the United States shows that more Americans believe Iran has a nuclear bomb than Israel. Israel has an entire stockpile of nuclear weapons, and the international watchdog for nuclear weapons, the U.S. intelligence community, and everybody else continues to say that Iran doesn't have a nuclear weapon. But Israel and their allies in the United States have had such a tight control over the media for so long, such a tight control over the political narrative for so long, that Americans didn't know this, that this didn't come up in conversation. People just assumed because Netanyahu showed up with a bomb in Congress in the 90s and said Iran was 5% away from getting a nuclear bomb, and has been saying, they're months or years away from getting a nuclear bomb for decades. People just assumed that Iran must have developed a nuclear weapon since they've been working on it for so long. And because it was utter taboo to talk about Israel's nuclear program, nobody knew about it. But now they don't have that tight control over the media narrative anymore. People just scroll through videos on YouTube and TikTok, and sometimes the truth slips in. And once people, realize that truth and then go get more information and really start to learn, I think it shows just how hard it's going to be to get younger and younger Americans on board with the kind of consensus that's lived in the United States for so many decades at this point. All right. So before we finish it off here, I have this clip of the New York City mayoral debate. Now, I gotta say, I have never cared about a New York City mayoral election before. I do my best to stay out of the city and just not think about it as much as possible. But this year, for some inexplicable reason, Israel became the center of a national debate that was happening because of the mayoral race. And so this is Andrew Cuomo, I guess yesterday or Tuesday's election loser, going at it with Mandani, who ended up winning the election.
Will not denounce Hamas. The assemblyman will not denounce Hassan Piker, who said America deserved 9/11. The assemblyman just said in his response, well, it depends on occupation. That is code, meaning that Israel does not have a right to exist as a Jewish state. which he has never acknowledged. That is from the river to the sea. That's why he won't denounce globalize the intifada, which means kill all Jews.
Let's give Mr. Mamdani a chance to respond to that.
I want to be very clear. The occupation is a reference to international law and the violation of it, which Mr. Cuomo has no regard for since he signed up to be Benjamin Netanyahu's legal defense team during the course of this genocide. And I find the comments that Hassan made on 9/11 to be objectionable and reprehensible. And I also think that part of the reason why Democrats are in the situation that we are in, of being a permanent minority in this country, is we are looking only to speak to journalists and streamers and Americans with whom we agree of every single thing that they say. We need to take the case to every person, and I'm happy to do that, which is why I was on Fox News yesterday talking about how I wish it was more like NASCAR, so we could see all the billionaires who are sponsoring you right on your suit jacket.
So, you know, we're seeing, I think, almost the exact same dynamic play out here on the left as in the right, as I really got into before. But Cuomo is such a terrible politician, right? You say occupation is a dog whistle. What, you know, everybody knows that Palestine is occupied Israeli territory, that Israeli troops are conducting raids all over the West Bank, as well as controlling 50% of Gaza, and the rest of Gaza is utterly destroyed. And so, you know, he made this race about Israel, and Mamdani just was able to beat him on the issue because I think Cuomo's a terrible politician, but a lot of people don't like him because, again, he lost office before for being a groper. Now, one last issue on this. This was CNN, a debate panel, and Anna Kasparian weighing in on Mamdani's election victory.
It's a rejection of the establishment. That's what it is. Because the establishment has not actually looked out for
anti-Semitic. That's what it is. Fundamentally anti-Israel.
Please stop with this nonsense.
I get called a fascist every single day. I can call you an anti-Semitic because it's exactly what you are doing.
Hold on,
the Democratic Party has an anti-Semitic.
Why? Because he doesn't want to visit Israel as the mayor of New York City? Is that why?
He wants to arrest Bibi Netanyahu.
He shouldn't be arrested. He's a war criminal.
There you go.
Modern day Democratic Party. There you go. I'm right.
Modern day Democratic
He's wanted by the International Criminal Court. There's a warrant out for his arrest.
That there.
Modern day Democratic Party.
Next for us, why did President Trump get an MRI?
So, you know, I do apologize for making you guys listen to Ben Shapiro and CNN in the same episode, but Anna Kasparian absolutely handles herself well there. And, you know, I just want to say on the left, which I think is kind of ahead of the right as far as moving on this Israel issue, at this point, she's not even debating, you know, whether Netanyahu is a war criminal or not. She's just able to say it and kind of wins the debate and shuts it down. The onus is now on the defenders of Israel and Netanyahu on the American left to defend what Netanyahu is doing. And once you start to try to get into that, it's just absolutely indefensible. One last absolutely just hysterical, over-the-top reaction to Mamdani's election victory. This is the ADL. They're launching a major initiative to track and monitor Mamdani's administration of policies and appointments to protect Jewish New Yorkers. And so Jonathan Greenblatt is all concerned and up in arms. You know, all the accusations that they've had against Mamdani, a lot of them are just false. I think Greenblatt actually said that he had never been to a synagogue, and that wasn't true. They were mad that he didn't commit to going to Israel, that he wouldn't take a trip to Israel. And it just sets him up so well to say, I'm going to stay in New York City, the city I was elected to lead. That's exactly what every single voter wants to hear. If you're electing a mayor, you don't want to hear that your mayor is going to take a trip 6,000 miles away. You want them in the city. That's what Karen Bass got annihilated for, right? I think that was her name, the LA mayor. And they were really upset with her because she was in, I believe, Uganda during the Palisades fire. And so you don't want the mayor of your city to go to Israel. It's not even about the Jewish state or any questions about that. He just took the absolutely most reasonable position that every single person agrees with. And that's why he was able to win this election, because they were just so over the top in their attacks on him and made it about Israel, an issue that they're absolutely losing on. All right, guys, that will do it for the show this week. I've seen a ton of you in the comments. The Q&A yesterday was a lot of fun. If you like it, let me know. I'm certainly willing to do those again. I am going to have more guests coming back on the show next week. Of course, you could always drop in the YouTube comment section any recommendations that you have. Follow me on at @KyleLancelone_. And importantly, subscribe and share to this show. We are trying to build this channel. And, as much as I could come on here and talk, it really depends on the audience taking a little bit of time to recommend the show to someone. So thank you guys for your support, and we'll do it again soon.